Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to the channel. I've got the Nowcast back on the screen again. It was great to see in the last video. It's the best performing video of the channel so far. It was great to see quite a few of you seem to enjoy and get something out of it. So I'm thrilled with that. Please do leave a like on this video. Subscribe to the channel for more of this sort of content. Trying to improve the content that I make. Still very early days, so I'm happy to hear your feedback and things you'd like to see covered and ways I can improve. That's all welcome feedback. Please do that. So I wanted to make a follow-on video for the Nowcast video, kind of extending or continuing the theme that we finished that video with, which was looking at the margins of victory for Labour in some of these constituencies. And what I found was quite shocking. I'm still a little bit full of cold. I'm getting better, but still a little bit so same as last time. Maybe some jump cuts where I had to start coughing or sniffling that I'll cut out. So apologies for that. So after I did the video the other day, I went through and I crunched the numbers. And I went through England, Scotland and Wales and looked at all the constituencies where that salmon pink colour that we talked about, where Labour are currently leading in polls by between 0 and 5%. I went through and counted how many of those there are and to whom the constituency would go if we assume a 5% swing away from Labour. And it's quite fascinating. So if we scroll down, remember we finished up the video looking at this part. So the current Nowcast would have Labour losing their majority, as we saw. They're down 106 seats to 305. Well, there are 68 salmon pink coloured constituencies on that map. So if we take another 68 off of Labour's total, they would be down to 237 seats. Now the Conservatives would be the biggest winners out of that, gaining 36 of those, and they would improve to 250 seats. So the Conservatives would replace Labour as the largest party in the House of Commons. Reform and the next best performers, they would improve by 20 to land on 30 seats. The Greens would be up to 6. The pro-Palestine independents would be up to 8. That's another 2. The SNP would be up 10 to 25. And the Liberal Democrats, they're not second by less than 5% in any of those constituencies against Labour, so they remain on 69. So Conservatives would become the largest party on 250 seats. It would almost, almost certainly be a hung parliament, because 250, there'd be 76 short of a majority, and I think they'd struggle to put a coalition together. Obviously, Reform haven't got enough. The Liberal Democrats haven't quite got enough at 69, and to be honest, there's been no love lost between the Lib Dems and the Conservatives since their last coalition outing, and I don't think relations have thawed enough to consider that now either. So it would be a very interesting result to an election, and obviously Labour getting absolutely wiped out. But as I was just looking at this, my mouse hovered over one of the darker pink areas, so not the salmon pink, the slightly darker pink areas, which show a Labour margin of victory between 5 and 10%. And what I noticed was in quite a lot of constituencies, they're in that band, but they're only just in that band. It's maybe 5.5%, maybe 6, 6.5%, 7%. Now some of them they are up 8.9 to 10%. But in a not insignificant number of these seats, they are 5.5%, 6%, 7.5% ahead, so not that comfortably in that band. And what I also found that was quite interesting is that it is very heavily swayed towards Reform being in second place in those areas as well. So let's look at this. It's very interesting. Please do leave a like on the video if you like this content. Also, I was going to say, I've tried to make... I watched the last video back on my phone, and I wasn't very happy with how it looks. So I've tried to make the picture a bit more centered. I can't do anything about the white bands down the side of this screen. Unfortunately, it's just the way this web page is formatted. I have zoomed in, though, so you should be able to see the tooltip with the information on it a bit better now. Because I noticed when I watched it on my phone, I could barely read what was on the tooltip, so hopefully that looks a bit better for you. Right. Anyway, so let's start this then. So we're going to start over here, Lee and Atherton. So here they are 8.9% ahead, but you can see Reform are clearly in second place. The Conservatives not really challenging here. We move across to Bolton South and Walkden. Here, only 6% ahead. You see, this is what I mean. Not that comfortably in that over 5% category. They're coming down towards that area. So this could become salmon pink perhaps in the next Nowcast if the polls carry on in the way they're going, and the other ones would have flipped. So here, they're 6% ahead. Now, what's interesting here, Bolton South and Walkden, this is the general election map from 2019. So the 2019 general election map when Boris Johnson won an 80-ish, 86, I think it was, seat majority. Labour got wiped out. They did very well. They only did well in their very heartland areas. Let's just have a look if I can find it. Bolton South East. Now the constituencies have been, the boundaries have changed and the names have changed, but I believe this is the same constituency with a slightly different boundary. Bolton South East, Labour won with a 7,500 majority in 2019 under Jeremy Corbyn. Well, Bolton South and Walkden, which is there, trying to find it, 6%. So they're in danger of losing a seat that even Jeremy Corbyn managed to hold. This is what I mean. There's something extraordinary happening. I'm going to summarise it at the end. Let's move across to Ashton-under-Lyne. Now, this is interesting. Look at the MP, Angela Rayner, the Deputy Prime Minister, 7% ahead. Not that comfortably within that, over that 5% sort of boundary line between lean and tilt. Let's come across again. We spoke about last time Barnsley South, where Reform are only 1.5% behind. Well, in Barnsley North, they're 9% behind. Dan Jarvis, I think he's a government minister. So a bit more of a comfortable margin there, but still in this category. Normanton and Hemsworth, 5.9% behind. Reform clearly in second. Pontefract, Castleford and Nottingley again. Look at the MP, Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, only 5.8% ahead of Reform in second place. Come down to Rawmarsh and Conisbrough, 8% ahead. Look at the MP, John Healey, Defence Secretary. So there's 3 Cabinet Secretaries of State in this very small geographical area who are within this 5 to 10% range, and John Healey's got the best margin of victory at the moment of all of them at 8%. Angela Rayner and Yvette Cooper coming under pressure from Reform. And that's Pontefract, we looked at that one, yeah. So, you know, just in this area, you can see there that was 5 or 6 constituencies we looked at where, you know, there was a couple where they were 8% and more, but not insignificant number of them were 5.5%, 6%, something like that, 7%. And on the current trajectory of polling, we might expect to see these constituencies flip to that salmon pink with Reform gaining some ground. But, you know, maybe that's just a peculiarity of this area. Perhaps it's not seen throughout the rest of the country. Well, let's go and have a look. We'll move up to the northeast. So in the northeast, again, this is an area in 2019 where Labour did quite well, despite having a bad night elsewhere. You can see there's just this glut of red on this northeast coast around Sunderland, Newcastle, Hartlepool, that area. Well, you can see, we looked at the salmon pink areas last time, North Durham and Sunderland Central, where Reform are very close behind Labour. Let's just make our way through these darker pink areas. So Hartlepool, okay, 9.7% ahead, so that's more comfortable. But Reform in second, the Conservatives actually not performing too badly here, which is perhaps hurting Reform's chances of getting closer. Easington, 6.6% ahead. Reform clearly the second place runner. Horton and Sunderland South, again, please look at the MP. Bridget Phillipson, Education Secretary, only 5.5% ahead of Reform on current trajectory, on current polling. If it keeps going the way it's going, this one's almost certainly going to go salmon pink in the next Nowcast. So another cabinet minister at risk from Reform. Washington and Gateshead South is 6.3%, and South Shields 5.5% as well. Reform up into second, quite clearly the main challenger here. So, you know, it's not just a peculiarity of that Yorkshire, Manchester, Liverpool area. This is also in the north east, in another area where Labour did well in 2019 in one of their worst election performances for generations. So the last area I want to go to is another area that Labour do very well in, we're going to move our way down south, and we're going to come to south of Wales. And again, as I say, 2019, despite the poor results elsewhere, this was a fairly good area for Labour under Jeremy Corbyn. The Conservatives took two of the constituencies right at the south there, but the rest of it is fairly well tied up red. Well, let's have a look again. We looked at the salmon pink areas. We looked at let me just scroll up there. Looked at Torfan. We looked at Caerphilly. We looked at Swansea, Neath and Swansea East, where Reform are very close behind Labour. Let's just go through these slightly darker pink areas. So Newport East, 7.9% ahead. Newport West and Islwyn, 5.3% ahead. Reform clearly in second. Merthyr Tydfil, 5.6% ahead. Pontypridd, 5.5% ahead. Rhondda, 6.4% ahead. That's Chris Bryant. He's been a Labour MP for a very long time. Bridgend, Chris Elmore, 5.3% behind. And Swansea West, Torsten Bell, he's been newly elected as a Labour MP. He's only 7.8% ahead. So, we're looking at the potentially this whole south of Wales area essentially flipping from this red that we see there to turquoise. Now, you might say that sounds outlandish, but how can you... I don't think we can say that at this time. And I just watched this morning... Nigel Farage was doing a Q&A. They had a press conference. So I listened. They were announcing that they passed 100,000 Reform Party members. And he said, in answer to a question from a journalist, that he said you get these epochal moments in politics that come along once every generation or once every century or whatever, once in a long time. And he said that he feels that now may be that time for British politics. And you have to say, on the basis of this evidence that we've just seen there and the way it's going, he could well be right, because what we're looking at here is a redefining of political boundaries. Areas where previously, as we've seen in the 2019 election, comparing areas where Labour just win, even in their worst election performance for generations, they win. Well, we're seeing those areas come under pressure from Reform. Now, someone did make a comment on the previous video saying, "Oh, come on, it's only been 4 months and there's going to be years to the general election." You are completely right. You are right. And yes, there's a petition out there that's being debated in Parliament, by the way, in January. But there is a petition out there that's got almost 3 million signatures of people saying call a general election. Well, if you sign that, I hate to break it to you, you're not going to get a general election. That's not how our system works. Labour does have a 150 or 60 odd seat majority in the House of Commons, and they're not going to vote themselves out of office. It's just not going to happen. But yes, it's a long time to go. Yes, a week's a long time in politics, so 5 years is an eternity. But we can only use the trajectories and the data that we have to go on right now. And right now, Labour are in big trouble, as we summarised in the last video. But there could be, as I said in that last video as well, is this problem going to become existential for Labour? And if they start losing these areas of the country, these areas of red that are safe seats, safe areas where it doesn't matter if Labour are awful, they'll win that constituency. If those areas start to shrink down to smaller and smaller little areas in the pockets in the country, Labour are going to be in an existential crisis, because not only would they be on course to lose an election, but looking ahead to the future, you say, well, where on earth are their votes going to come from? How on earth will they ever get into government again? So I just wanted to make this video and follow up. I did some more number crunching. So just in those areas that we looked at, I haven't looked at the rest of the country, so just in that area around Manchester, Liverpool, the North East and South Wales, Reform are between 5 and 10% behind in 23 constituencies. So assuming that there was this 10% shift away from Labour at an election, that would mean that Reform would improve by another 23 seats, and they would then be on 53. So it doesn't really change the parliamentary mathematics based on what we did earlier, because they also wouldn't be able to form any sort of coalition with the Conservatives to form a majority in the House of Commons, so it would still be a hung parliament. I'm not sure the Reform Party would want to do a coalition with the Conservatives anyway, same as the Lib Dems. But you know, what I'm getting at is we are genuinely seeing a big shift in politics at the moment. Now, Labour can, of course, turn it around, and they may well. And like I say, there is a long time to go. And as the changes happen, I'll cover it on this channel. Like and subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss the videos. But there is definitely a shift happening, and Labour's going to have to do something to stem the tide at the moment, because it is looking a bit existential for them. And of course, the first test will be in May next year with the local elections, which I'll be covering on this channel, covering the by-elections each week. There's by-elections happening today in England and Scotland. I'll be doing the results in a video maybe tomorrow, if not then early next week. And there's also the Senedd elections in Wales, the Scottish elections to Holyrood in Scotland. I think they're in 2026. Wales is interesting. I did some number crunching in Wales of the parliamentary constituencies. So all of these that you can see here. There's 32 Wales constituencies, and Reform are second, so not by any margin, just second in general, in 23 of them. Now, some of them, they're not close second. It's like a safe seat, and they're just sort of, you know, second on. But still, they're second in 23 out of 32 seats, parliamentary seats in Wales. I think the Senedd elections are going to be very interesting, and I'll be covering those on this channel too. So thanks a lot for watching. I think there might be another Nowcast video that I do in the coming days as well, because it's something else I want to explore. But this video I thought would be interesting to see. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.